It was the summer of 1994, and the FIFA World Cup was underway in the United States. Across Colombia, millions of people were dreaming of glory. Every match felt like a step toward history. Fans filled their homes, cafes, and public squares, all watching with hope in their eyes. The Colombian national team was considered one of the strongest teams in the tournament. Many believed this could finally be the year their country achieved something extraordinary. And on the field stood one of Colombia's most respected footballers, Andrés Escobar. Calm, professional, dedicated, he was admired not only for his talent but also for his character. To many fans, he represented the very best of Colombian football, but then a single moment changed everything. During a crucial World Cup match, Escobar attempted to stop a dangerous attack from the opposing team. As he stretched to intercept the ball, it took an unfortunate deflection and rolled into Colombia's own net. It was an accident, a split-second moment that can happen to any football player, yet the consequences would become far greater than anyone could have imagined. That own goal became one of the most talked-about moments of the tournament, and, tragically, it would later become linked to one of the darkest stories in football history. This is the story of a nation's shattered dreams, the immense pressure surrounding the world's most popular sport, and the heartbreaking loss of a player who inspired millions. To understand what happened, we first need to understand Colombia in the early 1990s. At the time, Colombia was facing a difficult period in its history. Powerful criminal organizations involved in the illegal drug trade had gained significant influence in different parts of the country. Violence and corruption affected many communities, creating an atmosphere of fear and uncertainty. Law enforcement officers, journalists, judges, and public officials often worked under extremely challenging conditions. Many citizens worried about their safety. Trust in public institutions was frequently tested. For countless Colombians, everyday life was filled with uncertainty. But amid this darkness, football became a source of light. For millions of people, the sport offered something precious: hope. For 90 minutes, fans could put aside their worries and unite behind a common dream. When the national team played, differences disappeared. Entire neighborhoods celebrated together. Victories brought joy, and for a brief moment, people could forget the challenges waiting outside the stadium. Football was more than a game. It was an escape. It was pride. It was a symbol of a better future. However, the sport was not completely isolated from the problems affecting society. Huge sums of money surrounded football. Gambling interests and betting networks had become heavily invested in the game. As a result, the pressure on players continued to grow. The expectations were enormous. Every pass, every mistake, and every result carried tremendous weight. Players were expected to perform under intense scrutiny while carrying the hopes of an entire nation on their shoulders. Yet despite all that pressure, most players shared a simple goal: to represent their country with honor, to make their families proud, and to give everything they had for the badge on their chest. No one could have predicted that the events of the 1994 World Cup would soon lead to a tragedy that would shock Colombia and the entire football world. And at the center of that tragedy was Andrés Escobar, a man remembered not for a mistake, but for his humility, his professionalism, and the legacy he left behind. Andrés Escobar was born on March 13, 1967, in Medellin, Colombia. From an early age, he showed a deep passion for football. As the years passed, it became clear that he possessed something special. Escobar played as a defender, but he was far from an ordinary defender. His game was built on intelligence, discipline, and remarkable composure. Rather than relying on aggression, he relied on positioning, awareness, and calm decision-making. He seemed to read the game before anyone else, always knowing where to be and when to act. On the field, he played with respect. He rarely committed unnecessary fouls, he avoided pointless arguments, and he always carried himself with dignity. His teammates often said that Andrés almost never lost his temper. Whether during intense matches or in everyday life, he remained calm, friendly, and approachable. He treated everyone with kindness, he spoke respectfully to fans, he encouraged younger players, and even after difficult defeats, he was known for comforting those around him. It was this character, this humility, and this professionalism that earned him a special nickname throughout the football world, the Gentleman of Football, a title that perfectly reflected the man he was. As his career continued to rise, Escobar became a key player for Atlético Nacional, one of Colombia's most successful football clubs. There, he helped lead the team to one of the greatest achievements in Colombian football history. In 1989, Atlético Nacional won the Copa Libertadores, the most prestigious club competition in South America. The victory sparked celebrations across Colombia. People filled the streets, flags waved from windows, and football fans throughout the country celebrated a historic moment. At the heart of that success was Andrés Escobar, a talented player, a respected leader, and a symbol of hope for Colombian football. To many people, he was more than an athlete. He was a role model, a hero, and a man who represented the very best qualities of the sport. As the 1990s began, Colombia's national team started attracting worldwide attention. Under the leadership of coach Francisco Maturana, a remarkable generation of players emerged. The squad featured stars such as Carlos Valderrama, Faustino Asprilla, Freddy Rincon, and Andrés Escobar. This team would later become known as Colombia's Golden Generation. They played with confidence, creativity, and belief, a belief that they could compete with the very best teams in the world. Then came a moment that stunned the footballing world. In 1993, during the qualification campaign for the 1994 FIFA World Cup, Colombia faced Argentina in Buenos Aires. Argentina was one of football's greatest powers, and playing against them on their own ground was considered one of the toughest challenges in international football. What happened next shocked millions. Colombia produced a performance for the ages, performance that football fans still remember today. They defeated Argentina 5-0 in Buenos Aires. On Argentina's home soil, the result sent shockwaves throughout Latin America and beyond. Football fans around the world suddenly realized Colombia was no longer an underdog. They were a serious contender, a team capable of challenging anyone. The victory transformed expectations overnight. Journalists praised the team, experts discussed their chances, and excitement spread throughout the country. Even football legend Pelé publicly expressed confidence in Colombia's potential ahead of the World Cup. As the 1994 FIFA World Cup approached, anticipation continued to grow. The tournament would be held in the United States, and Colombia arrived carrying the hopes of an entire nation. Fans believed history was waiting to be written. National pride was at an all-time high. Many media outlets spoke about Colombia as a potential champion. The players were celebrated, the expectations were enormous, and the dream of lifting the World Cup trophy felt closer than ever before. But while millions focused on football, another reality existed beyond the stadium lights. A darker reality, one that very few people wanted to talk about, and one that would soon cast a shadow over the beautiful game. The powerful criminal networks and illegal gambling syndicates operating in Colombia had reportedly placed enormous sums of money on Colombia's success at the 1994 World Cup. At the time, these groups were widely feared. Many people believed they possessed enormous influence. The players knew about the pressure. Coach Francisco Maturana knew about the pressure, but who was willing to speak openly about it? Many people understood the risks of challenging powerful criminal interests. Years later, one journalist would write that Colombia's players did not travel to the World Cup carrying only hope, they also carried fear, a poor performance, a costly mistake, a disappointing result. The consequences could be unpredictable. What nobody knew was how quickly those fears would become reality. June 22nd, 1994, Stanford Stadium, California. Colombia versus the United States, a must-win match. Colombia had already lost its opening game against Romania. The pressure was enormous. Millions of fans were watching. An entire nation was hoping, and according to various reports, powerful interests were watching closely as well. Then, in the 35th minute, a moment arrived that would change football history forever. American midfielder John Harkes delivered a dangerous cross into Colombia's penalty area. Andrés Escobar reacted instantly, trying to protect his team, trying to clear the danger, But fate had other plans. The ball deflected off his leg and rolled into Colombia's own net. For a moment. Silence. A heartbreaking accident, the kind that can happen to any defender. Escobar stood up, kept playing, and continued fighting for his team because the match was not over. But when the final whistle blew, Colombia had lost. USA too? Colombia won? After the match, Escobar accepted responsibility. He remained calm, respectful, and professional, just as he always had been. But outside the stadium, a storm was beginning to grow. News of the defeat spread across Colombia. Many fans were devastated. Some reacted with sadness. Others reacted with anger. Escobar suddenly found himself at the center of criticism. The pressure became heavier, and according to reports, threats began to appear. Meanwhile, Escobar was still in the United States. Friends advised him to stay abroad, to wait, to let tensions cool down. But Escobar refused. He wanted to return home. He believed football mistakes were part of the game. He believed people would understand. Most of all, he believed in his country. Sadly, that trust would cost him his life. July 2nd, 1994, approximately 3 a.m., Medellin, Colombia. Escobar had spent the evening with friends, trying to relax, trying to move on from the World Cup for a short time. He laughed and he talked, and he tried to forget the pressure surrounding him. But outside, something terrible was about to happen. As Escobar entered the parking lot, an armed man approached. Moments later, multiple gunshots rang out. Escobar collapsed to the ground. He was rushed to a hospital. Doctors fought to save him, but the injuries were too severe. Less than an hour later, Andrés Escobar was pronounced dead. He was only 27 years old. The news shocked Colombia. The news shocked the football world. A talented footballer, a respected professional, a kind human being, gone forever. In the days that followed, police launched a major investigation. Authorities arrested Humberto Muñoz Castro, also known as El Toro. He later admitted involvement in the shooting, but investigators continued asking one crucial question. Did he act alone, or was there something bigger behind the crime? According to investigators and later reports, the case appeared to involve connections reaching beyond a single individual. Many questions remained unanswered, and for many people, true justice never felt complete. The death of Andrés Escobar became more than a murder case. It became a symbol of a time when crime, money, fear, and football collided in the most tragic way imaginable, because football is only a game. Players make mistakes, matches are won, matches are lost, but no mistake on a football field should ever cost a person their life. Today, Andrés Escobar is remembered not for an own goal, but for his character, his humility, his sportsmanship, and the legacy he left behind, a legacy that earned him the name, the gentleman of football. When Colombia lost to the United States, it was not just a football defeat. For some people, it was the loss of enormous amounts of money. According to many reports from that era, powerful gambling interests and criminal networks had placed massive financial bets on Colombia's success at the World Cup. To those individuals, football was not simply a sport. It was a business, and the players were not always seen as human beings with emotions, fears, and families. They were viewed as investments, and when an investment failed, someone had to be blamed. That was the dark reality, a reality that shows what can happen when money, power, and crime become entangled with sports. Because once that happens, the game is no longer just a game. News of Andrés Escobar's death spread rapidly across the world. The football community was shocked. Fans could hardly believe what had happened. FIFA expressed deep sadness over the tragedy, and concerns were raised about the pressures surrounding football during that period. Players from around the world reacted with grief, anger, and disbelief. Football legends such as Diego Maradona, Michel Platini, and many other international stars expressed their sorrow. Across different countries, a similar message could be heard. This is not just the death of a footballer. This is a tragedy for football itself. Soon, Escobar's photograph appeared on the front pages of newspapers across the globe. Major international media outlets covered the story extensively. People began asking difficult questions. Is football truly safe? Are players adequately protected from extreme pressure and abuse? If a mistake on a football field can lead to violence, what does that say about society? What does that say about the way athletes are treated? The world searched for answers, but clear answers were difficult to find. Perhaps the most heartbreaking part of the story came from words Escobar himself had written shortly before his death. After the World Cup, he published a message reflecting on the disappointment and on the future. In that message, he encouraged people to move forward, to remain hopeful, and to remember that life continues beyond victory and defeat. His message carried dignity, compassion, and optimism, even during one of the most difficult moments of his life. Today, those words are still remembered by many Colombians. They continue to inspire football fans, students, coaches, and young athletes because they remind people that setbacks are temporary and that humanity matters more than any result on a scoreboard. In Medellin, the city where Andrés Escobar was born, large murals honor his memory. His image stands as a symbol of respect, sportsmanship, and integrity. He is remembered not only as a football player, but as a man who represented the best values of the game. For many people, Escobar became the face of fair play, the face of dignity under pressure, and the face of kindness in a sport that can sometimes be unforgiving. His former club, Atlético Nacional, continues to honor his legacy, and generations of Colombian children grow up learning his story. Many of them see him as a role model, not simply because of how he played, but because of who he was, a humble man, a respectful teammate, and a person who never stopped treating others with kindness. Years have passed, but the world has not forgotten him. His honesty, his calm personality, and his selfless love for football remain part of his legacy. He may be gone, but his influence remains, and it continues to inspire millions. The story of Andrés Escobar teaches us many important lessons. Perhaps the most important lesson is this: football players are human beings, not machines. They make mistakes, just like everyone else. An own goal, a missed penalty, a poor performance, a bad day. None of these things should ever define a person's worth, and none of them should ever become a reason for violence. As fans, it is easy to celebrate players when they succeed, but true respect is shown when we support them during failure, because failure is part of every sport and part of every human life. The moment we begin treating athletes as if they must be perfect, the moment we forget that they are human, we cross a dangerous line. A football match should never become a question of life and death, and when greed, criminal influence, or hatred enter the world of sports, the game begins to lose its soul. Many people believe that the killing of Andrés Escobar was more than the loss of a single player. It became a symbol of what can happen when pressure becomes toxic. It became a symbol of what can happen when pressure becomes toxic, when money becomes more important than humanity, and when anger replaces compassion. On that July night in 1994, in a parking lot in Medellin, a good man lost his life. What was his crime? He made a mistake on a football field, a mistake that could have happened to any player. The ball moved in the wrong direction, and tragically, a life was cut short. Today, when we watch the World Cup, when we watch our favorite teams, when a player makes a mistake, and when we feel the urge to react with anger, perhaps we should pause for a moment and remember Andrés Escobar, remember the man behind the jersey, and remember the human being behind the result. Remember the lesson his story left behind. Shortly before his death, Escobar encouraged people to move forward, to keep living, and to keep believing in tomorrow. Sadly, he was never given the opportunity to continue that journey himself. His future was taken away, not because of a crime, not because of hatred, but because some people allowed a football result to become something far more dangerous. Football is a beautiful game, a game that unites families, communities, and nations. But when football becomes a weapon for money, when passion turns into hatred, when winning and losing become measures of a person's value, the game stops being beautiful, and something far more tragic begins. That is why Andrés Escobar's story continues to matter today, not only as a football story, but as a human story. A reminder that no match, no trophy, no bet, and no result will ever be more valuable than a human life.